Sacred geometry is all around us. It's the underlying geometrical proportion upon which reality unfolds and through which consciousness operates and constructs reality upon. As more people continue to become conscious, more people are becoming aware of what sacred geometry is. This is Skull Babylon, and you're about to listen to episode 16 of Paradigm Shift Radio. Along with our regular Paradigm Shift community news at the top of the show, we were happy to have artist and philosopher Charles Gilchrist as well as trance guitarist extraordinaire Julian on as our guest to talk about their relationship with sacred geometry and the work that they're doing, including the integration of sacred geometry into the mainstream culture through the world of action sports, such as skateboarding. Along with all this excitement, Paradigm Shift Radio is happy to give you the chance to win all access passes to the 3 Days of Light Festival and Retreat happening soon in Asheville, North Carolina, simply by listening to this show and following the instructions. There's still a few chances to win between now and the end of October, so be sure to keep listening to Paradigm Shift Radio, join us on Facebook, tell your friends about it, check out ParadigmShiftCentral.com for links to the various Paradigm Shift communities throughout the globe, and consider starting up your own, because after all, the time is now. Enjoy the show.
All my will is bent on change. The universe is ours to rearrange. Follow my lead, and in fact you will see that you create your own reality. Concentrate on the shifting tides, recombinant the recurring mind, a way to dislocate and reinvent time, to reinterpret the cosmic paradigm. Open your eyes to reclaim your prize. This is Skull Babylon, and you are listening to another jam-packed, exciting episode of Paradigm Shift Radio, the new interactive show to assist in the evolution of consciousness. All right, guys, so thank you very much for tuning in. Obviously, if you are here now, you heard ahead of time that we've got quite the show lined up. Now, first of all, I just want to say that we will be having our guests on later in the show, and our guests will be Charles Gilchrist as well as Julian Forrest, and the topic will be relating around sacred geometry, which is something that Charles works very closely in, and as well as both of their, a little bit of a backstory on their evolution artists, so to speak, and how they approach their work with sacred geometry, and more specifically Julian's work with music and what Julian and Charles are actually working together on. And that ties in with the whole idea of the 3 Days of Light, which is another big part as to why you might be listening to the show, because if you are listening and you did hear about this ahead of time, you're going to know that by listening to the show tonight and by tuning in, you're going to have a chance to win some all-access passes to 3 Days of Light. Now, the 3 Days of Light Festival, as some of you heard, is a consciousness festival and retreat. So the website for that is the 3dlgathering.com, and there's also the Facebook page, which is facebook.com/3 Days of Light Asheville, because it does take place in Asheville, North Carolina, which is a very cool thing. So guys, within the first couple minutes of the show, we're just going to do our regular little run-through. Just let your friends know that Paradigm Shift Radio is live right now and that they can tune in, and that we're looking for people to be able to join the live chat right now. And just as I'm getting things started here, I just want to make sure, just give me a little shout-out in the live chat. Make sure that you guys can actually hear me coming through on the audio right now. I know this is kind of a multitasking thing for me in terms of hosting, keeping an eye on the live chat, and make sure that you guys can be able to hear okay. So just give me a little bit of confirmation through the live chat. But it does sound like everything is in working order. So with that said, we are good to go. Is my mic cutting out? I'm getting a little bit of people giving me some yeah, okay, so Mike's, yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, it kind of cuts in and out, like, that's not really something I'm totally in control of, but whatever, we'll make do with it. So, alright guys, to keep things moving along, let me just double check. Alright, okay, cool. So first of all, just in terms of what Paradigm Shift is a global community of, Paradigm Shift communities exist all throughout the world. So if you haven't heard of Paradigm Shift yet, go to ParadigmShiftCentral.com and you can check out the links there to all of the other Paradigm Shift communities by going through the directory. And what Paradigm Shift communities are about, along with being a digital online community through Facebook and everything, it's about encouraging open-mindedness, healthy living, and the evolution of consciousness. consciousness. So this is something where by listening to this show, we're trying to give you a little bit of an example of what some of the conversations might be like for when you have them in your own physical communities, because we're always encouraging people to get involved with their physical community and to start up paradigm shift communities in their own area. Now, you may already be doing something similar, so you don't technically have to use the title paradigm shift, but if you want to, that's totally cool, because it has like this whole sort of collective idea behind it, that it's not just your one community, but it's actually something bigger, and we're all going to be able to stay connected and linked into each other as we continue to evolve together, which is a pretty cool thing. So go to facebook.com/ParadigmShiftCentral, and you'll see some tips on how to get a paradigm shift community started in your area, but it's pretty straightforward. Basically, for what we do in London, Ontario, which is the one that I'm associated with, we have our meetings every Friday. So we had our meeting yesterday, and it went perfect. Perfect is kind of a subjective term, but it went really well. And we have hit critical mass in our community. Since about 2 months ago, we have consistently been having more than 20 people come out to our meetings, and our meetings are just open conversation and a meditation circle as well, and we're always getting new faces out. So what's happening here in London, Ontario through Paradigm Shift London is just testament to the fact that if it can happen here, it can happen anywhere. All right, guys, so to keep things, like I said, to keep things moving along, because we're going to be trying to stick into a little bit of a schedule tonight, I am going to be bringing on our lovely co-host for this evening, Jen, as some of you have already had the pleasure of meeting. And Jen's going to come on here, and I think she's got some little bit of an interesting story that she's probably pretty eager to share. So I'm going to bring Jen on, and then we're going to segue into one of the people from Paradigm Shift Edmonton, who's going to be talking to us a little bit about how things are going in Edmonton, and then from there we'll be getting into our first guest, which will be Charles, as well as his partner and manager, Jay. So we'll be bringing Jen on right now. So Jen, if you're ready, I'm bringing you on the air. And hey, Jen, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you just fine. So
fantastic. Great.
Cool. So, Jen. Has a lot changed since last time we talked?
Yes. I had actually been planning for a while a really cool experience. I had the pleasure of meeting some people who actually had a little DMT church going, and it was incredible. And what's wonderful about tonight's conversation about like the sacred geometry that you were going to tie in is you experience it on a different level. And for my personal experience, I didn't leave into the world of sacred geometry like a lot of people do, but it was really interesting to see that sacred geometry was still present when I was still seeing through my eyes. It was, it's just very interesting.
Yeah. So just to back up a little bit, and first of all, Jen, put your headphones on.
Because you can hear you.
So I'm just muting you just for 2 seconds while you find your headphones. But what doing the live chat, which is great. So shout out to all the people in the live chat and to all our new listeners as well. Now here at Paradigm Shift Radio, we do encourage conversation of psychedelics and spiritual medicines, and that was a big topic in our show last week. So what Jen is referring to is her own personal experience with psychedelic, which is the most, so to speak, one of the most potent and short duration psychedelics out there, and that's dimethyltryptamine, which is also a chemical that's produced within your brain naturally when you relation between that and sort of higher states of consciousness and the soul sort of existing outside the body, if you want to even use the term soul, or just consciousness itself. So what Jen is basically, the interesting thing about how this ties in with sacred geometry is that through the experience of something like dimethyltryptamine, and again, we're not encouraging the use of psychedelics or any sort of illegal substances, but we do encourage the conversation of it, because what's important here is that when you're having experience with something like DMT, you literally see sacred geometry viscerally. You see it sort of like you see the code behind the matrix is something that I've used to explain before. So Jen, just tell us a little bit more about that experience, just within the next couple minutes. Kind of keep.
Yes. Absolutely. I've been meditating for about 10 years. I've been on my path that long. And I took a lot of time to prepare myself for this. This actually was not a recreational type thing at all. And once you get together with your friends, and different people have different experiences, but once you get together with your friends, you'll kind of decide the setting that you want to make. And the setting is not like external, it's internal. And that's what is so wonderful about this, because if you have open-minded individuals like in this community to speak to about this, then you can get your energy right. Actually, we meditated and we ohmed and we chanted, and then we went out to the park and we did some yoga, and it was just fantastic. And it actually, for 5 of us to do DMT ceremonies, it was 2.5 hours, and we recorded the whole thing, and we just had some incredible experiences. And everyone had entirely different perceptions, and some people talked and people saw things. But the wonderful thing was, and I don't know if anyone else has really done much research on their own, but people have, of course, had some horror stories with trips or whatever. But the wonderful thing was, not one people. It was definitely smoked, and it wasn't layered with anything. Like I've heard about like the different ways to take or whatever. But since we spent so much time meditating and just we had a nice dinner and we hung out and stuff, since we did that, it made it an entirely wonderful time for everyone. And there wasn't any ayahuasca or anything like that, and it only lasted like a few minutes, and it was, I don't know, if anyone hasn't, if they haven't done it, it's kind of hard to explain to someone who doesn't really understand like the visuals or everything. But I think that the wonderful thing about DMT is it's not going to make someone get in their car and go and make a bad decision. It's not going to make someone, do anything like that. And it gives you a better doorway to go through to kind of explore your inner self and explore your own relationship with, how you feel about creation or how you feel about your energy or just your progress on your spiritual path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and okay, like again, this is a topic that we will get into more another time. And for people who are interested in this, check out the documentary, The Spirit Molecule. There's more information there. Look up the book, The Spirit Molecule by Rick Strassman. There's a lot of information about DMT if you're interested in finding out about that. But in the basic concept, and you can listen to Joe Rogan talk about it too. It definitely puts you out there to this visceral experience that, like, yes, this reality is not as cut and dry as it appears to be, and our perception is quite filtered, and that there's more beneath it. And what is beneath it, and then, again, this sort of segues into our topic tonight, you see and you experience, like, this architecture of light and geometry and proportions infinitely unfolding upon itself, and in a whole new way. And again, like kind of like what Jen's saying, unless you've kind of experienced it for yourself, it's sort of hard to explain it to someone who hasn't. It's not something, you can try really hard to recreate it with visual graphics, and maybe we'll get there someday, and I know some people have tried, but yeah, again, we're not advocating it. If you're interested in that, I would suggest just approaching, even just getting deeper into the meditative states, because through deep meditative states you can have like similar effects, but it's sort of, it's not like that black and white, but yeah, it's something worth looking into. Okay, guys, now I'm just trying to keep an eye on everything as we got stuff going on here. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do right now, first of all, in terms of people who are interested in winning an all-access pass to the 3DL event, what I would like you guys to do in order to do this, in order to enter for your chance to be a part of the 3DL prize-winning all-access pass, I want you guys to, first of all, promote Paradigm Shift just to a couple friends, and I literally just mean a couple. Tell a couple friends about Paradigm Shift, and then send a message to the Facebook page of Paradigm Shift. So go to facebook.com/ParadigmShiftRadio. Send a message to the Facebook page there, just saying something. You can add in something personal and just be like, "Yo, I really like what you guys are doing. It's awesome," and stuff like that. Include me in like the draw, because that's basically what it's going to be. It's going to be a draw. We're going to get all the names together, and then we're going to leave it up to synchronicity, so to speak. And one of those names for this episode will be sort of pulled out of a hat. and then that person will be contacted, and they will receive the all access pass information from there. And then we'll repeat this between this show and leading up to the 3 Days of Light event. So between now and the last show, which is on October 20 something ish, and then we'll be reporting live from 3DL on November 3rd, which is something pretty exciting. And Jen, just before we bring it in, because I'd like to bring in Edwin from Paradigm Shift Edmonton, if he is on the line. Now, I'm not exactly sure if I do see Edwin from Paradigm Shift Edmonton in my queue, so may not have him on. But Jen, I was going to say, are you planning on going to 3DL? The 3
Yes,
Days of Light?
absolutely. Yeah. And I have 3 friends up in Philadelphia. I'm about an hour south of Pittsburgh. So, excuse me. I have 3 friends from Philadelphia who are trying to go, and maybe a couple friends here from my hometown. So we're trying to get some carpool situations together. So if anyone wants to, hike or meet up, a certain, distance away or something, I mean, we have enough time to plan, and that's what's so great now. So if anyone wants to add me on Facebook and say, oh, I'd like to go, or, could we meet here or whatever, that is completely awesome. And I've been telling every single person that I can to try to get them to show up. And it looks like I'll even have a few new friends that didn't get to make it to the Bacardi Bliss in Asheville that are going to get to make it to this. So it's going to be fantastic.
Sweet. Okay, cool. So I do see Edwin is just popped into the queue, so I'm actually going to bring him on just so we can stay on schedule, because I do want to be able to bring Jay and Charles on at the time that I promised, which would be no later than 11:30. So, Bacardi Bliss, or sorry, not that was the last one. 3 Days of Light Gathering. Check it out. If you want to be part of this competition and win the passes, go to facebook.com/ParadigmShiftRadio. Send us a message. Tell a couple friends. Tell us what you think about the show. Tell us you want to be part of the contest, and then your name will be entered into this draw, which will continue between now and the next few weeks. So you don't have to re-enter. And tell some more friends about it, and then somebody will win. Somebody's life will change by the end of the show when we decide who's going to get that first all-access pass. So that said, I'm going to bring on Edwin from Paradigm Shift Edmonton right about now. Edwin, if you're ready, I'm bringing you on. And okay, here we go. Hey.
Yeah. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, man. Okay, cool. We got you here. So, okay, just to keep things sort of moving along, just introduce yourself and just share with us a little bit of information about how things are going in Paradigm Shift Edmonton area.
Yeah, sure. My name is Edwin, and I'm from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and I've been trying to start a paradigm shift here in Edmonton. There's a very huge lack of anything, to do with this sort of topic here in my city. So what I'm trying to do is, raise awareness to the topic and just kind of, find other people that I can talk to about it. And, just kind of, I went to the Bacardi Bliss retreat, and the love and synchronicity I felt there was just absolutely amazing. And that's something that I would love to bring to everyone, So I'm just really hoping that this gathering that I'm planning on doing, or I guess you want to call it a meeting, will help get more people into it, and on top of that, maybe expand from here to maybe Calgary or other cities in my area.
Totally, man. And I think the big part about doing this whole paradigm shift thing is understanding that there are other people out there who are just waiting to meet more like-minded people, right? So half the challenge for us is going out and finding them, but knowing that they're already there. So it's pretty exciting when you start, again, synchronistically start running into people in your own community. So and you've definitely how what's the feedback like so far? How many people do you get interested? If you can
so far I've had a lot of positive feedback, but it's funny because it's a very small group of my friends are actually interested in the same things that I am. So, I have a small handful of my friends that are interested, but then I have a whole bunch of other people that I don't actually know very well who are extremely interested into it. So it's very exciting because, get to meet a whole bunch of new people,
Yeah.
And it probably wouldn't be starting till mid-November because I am going to 3 Days of Light. And, from there I'm going to try to, with the knowledge that I obtained there, I'm going to try to start the group up from there,
Well, I'm looking forward to that, man. Like, I'm looking forward to actually being able to personally meet you at 3 Days of Light. Like, I'm sure there's going to be so much happening, but like without a doubt, we will run into each other at 3 Days of Light, and that'll be cool, man. Like to have some fellow Canadians there. We'll have to, sort of like get together in our own little like Canadian group at some point just to sort of count heads, but it's cool, man.
Yeah,
So
that would be awesome, man. That sounds sweet. And actually, Jordan from Spirit Science, he is actually Canadian also. He's originally from Winnipeg.
Right. That's right. Yeah, a lot of people might sort of like may not know that, but yeah, that's right. So us Canadians are, when we're not busy like walking around in snowshoes and stuff, we're getting stuff done. We're shifting paradigms. That's right. So cool, man. But yeah, tell me, like, what direction do you see taking Paradigm Shift Edmonton in?
That's still it's hard to call because it's still so early in its development. But I'm hoping to. I don't even know where I'm going to hold the first meeting. Depending on the feedback that I'm getting, I might have it in a community center, or I might actually have it in, maybe at my house or something. So I'm hoping to get it to the point where I have so many people that I can, at least fill up a community center and just have, very in-depth conversations and, just share that energy and that love and, maybe have a meditation session and share that vibration with other people,
Mm-hmm. It's always it's good with the open conversation. I mean, when you're starting off a Paradigm Shift community, it's not a bad idea to sort of set an event that has a specific topic. So one would like such as lucid dreaming would always be a topic of interest. Like a lot of people are, obviously everyone dreams. So if you're talking about lucid dreaming, that would be something that's going to draw people out. But I mean, once you sort of get into that open conversation mode and you find that, people are just like, oh, this is what I'm interested in. Let me bring it to the conversation. And then you just sort of let things go from there. Last night in our Paradigm Shift meeting, we got into some pretty interesting topics. In particular, we were talking about deja vu for a while, which is something that I think is, really worth taking a look at when, my sort of simple perspective on it, it's sort of tied in with this idea that, like, we as beings, as light beings or humans, we exist like beyond the present. So there's like a part of us information-wise that exists both in the past and in the future. So when we're having experiences like of deja vu, it could be sort of seen as like our higher self sort of like trying to get our attention, sort of trying to say like wake up sort of thing, or to sort of confirm that we're like on the right path or in some way or another. So yeah, bring deja vu up, see what happens, see where that conversation goes. That's just one of many. So.
Oh yeah, man, for sure. Like, and that like the very first meeting, I actually already wrote down what I kind of wanted to talk about, and it's going to be kind of how, you may be into lucid dreaming, and that is a very cool part. Like the lucid dreams I've had are like the best experiences I've ever had. They're freaking crazy, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like I want to talk about lucid dreaming and how it's connected to other aspects of spirituality, such as meditation, such as like, how chakras work and all that, and how they're all interconnected. Like to find out and master one part of it, you got to kind of get the whole picture. So I'm hoping the first meeting's going to be like the overall view, and then from there, with the feedback that I get from other people that I talk to that come to the meeting, I'm going to decide, what we should discuss the next one. And, it's not like it's written in stone. It's going to be like, if I think we should discuss this, we'll discuss it for a while. But if the conversation shifts it another way, I'm not opposed to that. I'm all for it,
Yeah, you gotta let it sort of go where it needs to, kind of thing. But that's that's the beauty with Paradigm Shift, is that it's not just supposed to be one single thing. If anything, relating back to the theme, like it's about encouraging open-mindedness. And one of the original taglines that I had associated with it, that I still sort of use here and there, is this idea that like it's encouraging questions rather than accepting answers. So if you can keep doing that, if you can keep asking questions, even if you think you have something totally figured out, even if it's like, oh, I've mastered that, then, or have you, like ask more questions. If you're just not
never stop learning.
Yeah, and then like you said, it's really about connecting the dots as well, and that's the fun part too. So for sure. Well, let me just see, Jen, you're still with us. What do you think, Jen? Like, are you gonna maybe get some Paradigm Shift community stuff going on in your area?
Yes, I would absolutely love to. And another cool thing is, even if you don't have, like, even if it seems like you don't have the community where people would want to, get together and necessarily talk about meditation or chakras, like, personally, I've run into a lot of people who, I think it's so funny, but they act like chakras are like a fairy tale. They act like, they aren't actual, like, thing that's manifested by, our anatomy. They really don't understand the connection. But even if you can't find people to do that, I was planning on getting a laughter circle going and trying to get some friends to do some yoga. And one of the we did Thai massage at the Bacati Bliss, so that was one of the awesome.
It was so good.
Wasn't it? It was amazing. So
amazing.
I'll probably try to get a couple smaller things together because, like you said, it's not just about feeling like you have every answer. It's about getting together and asking more questions that you wouldn't have normally asked. And so I plan on getting some other things going for energy to be flowing, and then hopefully it turns into a wonderful place to foster a new paradigm shift community here in Morgantown.
Totally. It's not, I was sort of thinking about this today, and I was actually talking to someone else about it. In terms of comparing this to something like Occupy, just as an example, Occupy, it was this big explosion, and then it sort of fizzled out and dispersed and sort of transmutated into other stuff. But what's sort of different with Paradigm Shift is that it's a very slow and steady process where we're creating a foundation over time, and it's not just something that's going to disappear overnight. So it's always going to be there, and it doesn't matter how fast you're moving, just as long as you keep moving forward is sort of my tip and my words of advice. So that said, Edwin, thanks for calling in, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me, and thanks for the motivation, man.
Cool. And do you guys got a Paradigm Shift Edmonton Facebook page?
Not yet, but I'll be making one pretty soon here.
Perfect. All right. So in the meantime, if anyone wants to get connected with that, go to facebook.com/ParadigmShiftCentral or ParadigmShiftCentral.com, and you'll get that link eventually. So cool, man. Thanks again, and we'll keep in touch, and I'll see you at 3DL. So.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you. I look forward to meeting you.
Word. All right. See you, dude. Namaste.
Bye.
Cool. All right. So again, it is 11:30, and we're about ready to bring on our guests for the evening. So we got a few people lined up, and just a quick reminder, because this is something very important in terms of the chance to win a free pass to 3DL. Again, if you're just tuning in and you want a chance to win access to the 3 Days of Light gathering, all you have to do is go to facebook.com/ParadigmShiftRadio, message the page, and just tell us, say hello, and then we'll get your name there and we'll add it into the draw. So very simple, and I just don't want any people missing their opportunity to get involved with that, and that will be continued throughout this episode and the future episodes. So that said, let's just take a deep breath here as we get ready to sort of shift gears and get into the topic of sacred geometry, and as well as finding out who Charles Gilchrist is, and as well as his good friend Jay. So we're going to be bringing both of them on the air, and I'm just going to bring Jay on the air first. So Jay, if you're listening and you're ready, I'm going to bring you on the air first, and then I'm going to bring Charles in 1 second after. So, hello, Jay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How are you doing, Brendan?
Very good, man. Good to hear you again. So we've been talking back and forth for the last couple of days. So, all right, and I'm gonna. You sound good. Everything sounds good. So I'm gonna bring Charles on right now. And here we go. And Charles, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. All right. Wonderful. All right, so we have everyone here. So just as a introduction, Jay, you are good friends with Charles, and you would be referred to as his business partner and manager. And Charles, you yourself are involved in the fine arts and as well as philosophy and a lot of other stuff. So Charles, if you could, please introduce yourself to our listeners and just tell us a little bit about yourself as an introduction.
As an introduction, who am I? Well, I'm a serious artist. I have been for my entire life, from the time I was a very young kid, and I've never really wanted to do anything else. That's really what if there's anything really unusual about me, I guess that's it. I knew what I wanted to do when I was 3.5 years old. That's kind of unusual.
Yeah. And I think even when you look back to sort of all of us and where we were as children, there was always like an intuitive side of us that was more sort of connected to source sort of thing. And that's interesting that at such a young age you knew that you wanted to be involved with this art and so forth. So, sorry, dude.
If I could tell a little story,
Yeah.
I think tell a little story about that whole business. I believe that people would actually know a lot about me, and I think know enough about me to really get where I'm coming from. So I'm going to tell a little story, if you don't mind.
yeah, that's what we're here for. So.
This story starts out, as I said, I knew when I was 3.5 years old. I had been drawing and coloring and copying out of magazines and into magazines since I could hold a pencil. And by the time I got to be 3.5, I was pretty far along with copying and those kinds of things. And I made this decision to try to draw something from my memory. It was the first time I ever tried to do that. And it was in the winter of 1943, Wichita, Kansas, in the middle of the plains. And it was very cold, and I was sitting in a little orange crate with a piece of plywood screwed onto the top of it, which was my little desk. And I had a little wicker chair, and I was sitting in this little wicker chair. I had colored pencils, I had paper. I was sitting beside a stove, a coal-burning stove, and my parents were papering the kitchen in the other room. I could hear them going on. They were really, really young. And there I was trying to draw a truck, a yellow truck. I decided that I wanted to draw a truck. So I was looking around in my memory to try to find this image of a truck in my head. And I got the image of a pickup truck, a silhouette of a pickup truck, and I drew a blue line across the bottom of the page. I drew a yellow silhouette of a pickup truck on top of that. 3 wheels in the pickup truck. That was a little error, but I couldn't tell it was at the time because I had imagined the 3 wheels of a tractor trailer. And then I put them into a pickup truck. So there's this pickup truck with 2 wheels in the back, 1 wheel in the front. And I'm drawing, and as I was drawing, I started to have this experience, which was very much like what you would call a pretty good dose of acid. And I started. I was only 3.5 years old. Of course, I had no idea, and that was before it was even around, at least commercially. And so it wasn't that I was, drugged or anything, but it was like that. It was a very mystical, visual awareness and acuteness started to happen. I started to see more and more and more clearly. Everything got sharper, more beautiful, more distinct. And I looked into the stove and I saw this fire in there, and the colors in there, and the rhythms and the patterns were way more interesting and vital than I'd ever seen anything before. Colors I'd never even dreamt of before. And then the fire starts to become alive, and all of a sudden there are beings in this fire, and they're all smiling at me and waving at me. Well, I had no idea what to think, So I just timidly waved back at them, And then look up at the ceiling, and the ceiling has a big face in it. And suddenly the whole room was alive. The chairs, the walls, the doorways, everything was alive, like it was like a Disney movie, And it was all supportive. All this hallucinogenic kind of, or hallucinations, if you want to call it that, were very revivifying. It was all supportive. And the light went off in my mind. I said, "Oh my God, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to do. I am an artist, and I'm here to do something with this. It's a gift from Spirit. It's a gift from God, and it's an assignment." And I took it really seriously. It was a life-forming experience. Believe me, it was tremendously powerful. And so I mused on this for several days, trying to get a hold of it. And I finally went to my mother, because my mother was pretty much the person that answered most of my questions. And she and I had this little game where I would ask a question, and she would answer me, then I would ask another question, and she would answer me, and then I would ask another question. And it got really annoying to her. And so she figured out the trick was to shut this kid up with one answer, So I say, Mommy, what is an artist? What is an artist? and kind of like hesitated. I could see she was thinking. She didn't want to make too quick an answer. She wanted to shut me up with one answer. And she put her finger on her finger on her temple, and she started rubbing, and she closed her eyes. It was like she was looking for the answer in her own brain. And she opened her eyes like, aha, she got it. And she says, Charles, an artist pursues truth and beauty. That's it, Charles. An artist pursues truth and beauty. And when she it went right back. It went right into my heart and right back, and I was right back to the same place that I was when I was drawing the little truck. It was like another revelation, like truth. Oh my God, this is truth. And so that whole thing has never really totally left me, and I have been pursuing truth and beauty to outrageous ends for my entire life.
Yeah.
So that was actually just eventually here, there was like magic guides along the way, teaching me, pointing me this way, pointing me that way.
Yeah.
Eventually, but you see, the problem was that I did get put to sleep because that little 3.5-year-old kid was way too high for the society at the time. You know, I didn't fit, and I wasn't the ideal child. You know, it was a handful, a big handful, and so I went into somebody training, and I got trained out of being that little 3.5-year-old mystic. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I didn't want to put see.
I think that's really interesting that such an event would happen to you at such a young age, because obviously like how can that not leave an impression on you, and clearly it has, and clearly it's helped direct your life choices and your path. And long story short, here we are now telling the story again to the people who generally have the ears to hear it and listen to it and really see where you're coming from. And I really like what you said about the idea of what is an artist. The idea is to pursue truth and beauty, and I think that's what I see in sacred geometry. I see that it is this underlying truth in the sense that it's a consistency. So I mean, for the people who may not be entirely familiar with what sacred geometry is, I mean, if you look at things, I mean, the term Metatron cube comes to mind for me, but a lot of people may not really be too familiar with that, though you can always, while you're listening to this podcast right now, please feel free to just go on Google and just to start typing in sacred geometry into Google and start getting some images and start getting an idea of what it visually looks like. And as well, go to Charles' website at charlesgilchrist.com and check out some of the images on there as well. But when people think of the Star of David, what's commonly referred to as the Star of David that we associate with Judaism and stuff, I mean, that in itself is sacred geometry in the sense that you can take that shape and fit it into itself infinitely, proportionally. And to me, when I was starting to figure out sacred geometry, it really helped me understand this concept of infinity and how the universe is like the micro and the macro within itself, and unfoldment into, as is above, so is below sort of thing. So, Charles, as we continue to tell more about the story of like your evolution as an artist and some of the other work that you're involved with, can you just try to give a bit of an explanation in terms of like telling the people what is sacred geometry from your perspective and what you've learned about it?
Well, yeah. Do we have 10 hours?
Exactly. Yeah.
Be a sacred geometry workshop, because obviously a sacred geometry workshop needs visual graphic information to go along with the words. But the whole idea is to try to figure out why you should even be concerned about it. What's the big and the point is that when I finally got to sacred geometry through my transcendental process of making art, my surrealistic and fanciful approach to art, which was a self-investigative, investigating my own inner workings, so to speak, my psychology. I was working with geometry all along. It was always there. I just didn't see the sacredness of it. See, so once you start to really perceive the sacredness of geometry, then you see, oh my God, how come I didn't see this? It's all over the place.
Yeah. Hidden in plain sight. Yeah.
Well, it is so incredibly simple and so beautiful and so perfect and so true. I mean, pi is pi. The circle is the circle, and it's not going to change, and it can't change. It's been the same thing from the beginning of time, and it will continue until this universe simply goes away. And any distant sentient life, inside the galaxy, outside the galaxy, wherever it is, it will find the circle, and it will find pi. It will find the relationship between the diameter of a circle as opposed to the circumference of the circle. It can't help it.
Yeah.
Because it's the truth. It's the underlying architecture of the entire universe, and we couldn't separate from it if we wanted to.
Yeah.
To study it becomes a clear path, a really true path to spirit and to transcendental experience and to alternative experience. And I can tell you, it's way better than any chemical, because this is predictable, and as long as you stay hooked up to sacred geometry, you're going to be in a whole other space. So the way to really learn sacred geometry is to get the archetypes, is to get the root concepts and to start playing with them. You don't have to be an artist. Just color them, play with them, fool around with them, touch them with your hands, and they'll start talking to you.
Yeah.
And,
sorry, I was just going to say that's something that our listeners, again, if you're listening to this right now and you have a pen and paper next to you, try this. And going back to what I was saying, using the Star of David as an example, I mean, although that's not the technical term that we need to refer to it as, I mean, you can refer to that as the star tetrahedron, just in two-dimensional form. But, I mean, basically, like a triangle up and then the triangle down, overlap them a bit. Take that shape, draw that, and then draw another one of those within that, and then draw another one within that, and within that, and that, and that. And then and Charles, this is something that I'm sure you can expand on, like the mere act of drawing sacred geometry, it does something to the brain. It's almost like activating something, and it's a very meditative state. So I know you've had a lot of work with this personally, and you've also been working with people through, who are in like debilitating conditions or even like mental, altered mental states, who have been working with sacred geometry and been able to like definitely gain positive emotional benefits from literally sitting down and drawing out these patterns firsthand. If you just want to maybe get into some of the work that you've done with that.
Hey, gentlemen,
Absolutely.
I'd like to interject here for a
Jake,
second.
by all means.
Yeah. This is. I just noticed there is a Jordan who just posted something on the chat board that says, I feel they need to say that geometry is not power in itself. Mm-hmm. They are conduits. Charles, I think this is a question that I think is really interesting that you might want to comment to.
I do want to talk to you, but I do want to say that. See, I believe that the entire universe is nothing but a gigantic communications machine. Mm-hmm. It's all talking to itself. This vibration that we're in the middle of this universe, and it's nothing but vibration. It's just wave phenomena, and yet it's all talking to itself, and it talks to itself in three languages, I believe, and one is the vibrations itself. The radiant energy itself is talking. Light is talking. We're getting messages from that. When we're learning, we understand heat, we understand cold, things like that. And we're also getting mathematics. We're getting sacred sequence, I call it, which is numbers. So you can definitely see the universe as mathematics very easily. But the real true, the bridging language, the really beautiful bridging language between the so-called left brain and the so-called right brain is sacred geometry, because not only is it like so beautifully perfect mathematically, but it's also so powerful, such a powerful doorway into the mind of God, so to speak. I mean, the circle is a voice. It has its own voice, and its own energy. And when you're, lots of people will say that one of the major problems that we have in this society is that we live inside of squares instead of circles. And in the native traditions, most native peoples do live in circles, and they certainly create all their rituals around circles or in circles. Mm-hmm. So it has an effect. All these forms have a psychological effect, and they are doorways into ways of thinking and levels of consciousness. Each one of them, all of the archetypes of sacred geometry are like this, including what you call the Star of David, which is a hexagram. Actually, not to be too difficult, but the star tetrahedron is actually a three-dimensional archetype rather than a two-dimensional archetype, and that's another area that we could get into relating to Metatron.
Yeah. This is also an area that has actually migrated between Charles and myself in the action sports world as well. Brendan, in our work that we are doing that pertains to sacred geometry and motion. And I think that the world out there is going to see some really magnificent stuff that we are doing with Charles and his designs, and specifically in the skateboard and snowboard world that they will see coming from our work really soon, because all these principles Charles can expound on it as well, because he has some very definite ideas about how action sports athletes who get interested in sacred geometry can actually utilize that to help themselves, with their skills as well. Charles, why don't you touch base on that a little bit?
Yeah,
I will finish up the very end of this last question that came through on the chat about multidimensional stuff, and that's one of the beautiful things about sacred geometry, because it forms a clear architecture whereby you can actually start to get a hold of the multidimensional nature of the universe. I mean, we live in the three-dimensional realm, and yet we know that there's these other layers of dimension. Most people are talking about the fourth dimension. Some people are talking about the fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th dimensions, which is like so of most people that it's ridiculous. But we actually are also living in a multidimensional universe which goes the other way. There is a real, true, honest-to-God, alive, living, two-dimensional, conceptual universe, which was there before we even drew a breath, human beings, I mean. And also there's a one-dimensional nature to the universe, which is really, really critical, because that is the whole thing that's going to make this paradigm shift happen. And by the way, I love these, because I'm totally into the support of the shift. It's absolutely necessary. Mm-hmm. The entire thing that would connect this whole thing together is one idea, and that is the holistic idea. It's the idea of unity, oneness. And all the people that are holistic in any kind of a way are actually directly linked to sacred geometry, way closer than they believe they are.
Yeah.
In sacred geometry, the first dimension is represented by the single point beyond time and space. The single point, like you were talking about earlier in the very early part of your show, you were talking about that part of us which is timeless, Mm-hmm. And it has always been and always will. That is the oneness of us. That is the internal center point, so to speak, the spiritual center. That's mm-hmm. Bindu. That's a single point. It's like what David Gravy, one of my favorite old guys from the 60s, he used to say, no matter where you go, there you are.
Yeah. And I think in terms of visualizing what sacred geometry is, it's good to actually sort of start off at the basis, and it is this idea of a point. And then from a point, you have a circle, and then you get two circles. And then when you take those two circles and just move them slightly apart, you have them overlapping with each other, and you have the common shape known as the Vesica Piscis. And that shape in itself is known as like the womb of the universe, and for good reason. And that's something that, take a look around you, like that's something that you see all throughout nature in very common forms. You think about the way leaves are shaped, you think about the way our eyes are shaped, like that is the shape of the Vesica Piscis, and there's also like there's galaxies that are shaped like that, and it's not a coincidence that the vagina is shaped like that. It's seriously, it's all throughout nature. So I think when you sort of like look at sacred geometry from that two-dimensional standpoint, you start sort of taking those circles and drawing them upon each other, and then when you get more, you start getting into the seed of life and then the flower of life, which is like a more complex grid. Like I think that's to me, that visually represents something very cool, because it relates to this whole idea of interconnectedness, and this idea that like, yes, it reiterates on a visual perception this whole idea of unity and how we are connected, and part of the reason we are connected is through this idea that sacred geometry is like the best term I use is like the code within the matrix. It is the underlying architecture through which consciousness works through. And I think that's the big thing, is that like consciousness itself is like this creative force that works through the proportions of sacred geometry in order for things to unfold as they will. And Charles, like what you've been doing with your work is outstanding. I mean, some of the your videos, when I was first starting to get into this whole paradigm shift business, like your videos were some of the first videos that I actually saw and learned from on sacred geometry. Like one of your videos about Metatron's cube, and I was just like, oh my god, like this, it just really started coming together for me. And then I sort of walk outside in nature, and I'm just like, oh, like the world suddenly looks different to me. So, I mean, you've been working with sacred geometry for so long. Just tell us a little bit more about just like your experience with working with sacred geometry firsthand, and how that's like helped you progress.
I will, and I'm going to get to the extreme games business really quickly, because
as well.
And I don't want to forget that, but
yes,
yeah. I will say a little bit more. We still have a few more minutes for the first half an hour, so we're cool, huh?
We're good. Yeah, we're good.
Okay, so when I woke up, when I was 30 years old, and I woke up, I got into it through meditation and then lucid dream, which is interestingly coincidental to your guess from the earlier, and I went through another hugely powerful shift, and I suddenly, after being asleep for all those years, I woke back up again. And in that vision, I had actually that one lasted for a couple of days, and in vision and in that paradigm shift of my own, that personal paradigm shift, I saw a glimpse what I could be. And I remembered who I had been back when I was 3.5, simultaneously. And I just rediscovered that child. And from there, I slowly worked through the surrealistic area, which I was talking about earlier, until I finally got to the point where I realized that the consistent messages that were coming through these dream images that I was making were all about geometry and numbers. And I said, aha, geometry, numbers. And I almost immediately I started getting bombarded by ideas about mandala, which is a really critical area that we got to talk about, because it's a worldwide phenomenon. And the process of creating mandala is actually a Sanskrit word. It literally means circle. But in Sanskrit, all the words, it's a really beautifully spiritual language, because all the words have multiple meanings on layers and layers and layers. So mandala, it could just mean simply a circle, any circle in the dirt. But it also means like the circle, big circle, the archetype of circle, and everything between. And so there's been this tradition, and people have found this all over the world forever, of creating ritualistic healing kinds of energies inside circles, and dividing that circle into various parts. I mean, the Four Corners is a perfect example. We've got this internationally recognized energy called North, South, East, and West. I mean, we are dead into sacred geometry, and we don't even realize it. Our whole concepts of telling time, of measuring time, is this 12-part circle, which is a clock. All directly related to sacred geometry, directly, empirically related. It just goes on and on and on and on. And I started to see this. And before I got into mandala, this is the important part, I think. Before I got into mandala, I was so completely self-absorbed. I didn't care anything about humanity. I thought man was like going in the dumper, and I just didn't care. I figured, well, I can just do my work, and that's all I got to worry about. I'm not going to worry about anything else. I was very selfish. I was very, antisocial, difficult, angry, hostile. And when I woke up finally to the fact that the process that I was using was actually healing me, in mandala making and sacred geometry was actually causing a radical change in my consciousness and allowing me to work through all kinds of issues that I had, personal psychological issues that I had to work through in sacred geometry, and the fact that I was spending thousands of hours in open-minded meditation making mandalas radically transformed my life for the better. And suddenly I just had to come out of the cave, so to speak, and I had to start to share it. And I tried, and when I first began to try, it was almost impossible because I was trying to talk about things that were beyond words for me. I didn't have the words, and I've been practicing ever since. Do I talk about this? How to make people understand how fantastic this is? Mm-hmm. And that drive to teach and to help and to share, is a whole new me compared to that person who was so dejected and demoralized that you drop out of society, basically. And that led to my sacred geometry videos, which are on YouTube, free. And anybody, if you study sacred geometry, the Sacred Geometry 101 series is designed exactly for people, step by step from the very beginning, all the way up through into Metatron's cube and beyond. Mm-hmm. And that's how I got into that, and that's why I do it. That's why, because I'm compelled. I can't not. Huh?
Yeah, it's very enticing working with sacred geometry. So
I'm a real maniac. I mean, people could, the right people could hospitalize me. I'm sure they could call me a what's the word? Obsessive compulsive.
Right. Yeah, this guy's just drawing circles all day. What's his problem? Jeez. But no, there's more to it. And we had mentioned this earlier, and I just want to bring this up right before. And Jay, I want to get we'll talk. Let's talk more about sacred geometry's integration with the action sports world as well, because I know that's a really very, very cool thing and something that I'm really excited about as well, being into skateboards and stuff myself. But what I was just going to mention was in the past, in the summer, I did a little bit of work with a free school camp where I was working with children, and we were opening them up to meditation and yoga and stuff. And one of the things that I did just sort of instinctively was to get the children working with sacred geometry and coloring in some flowers of life and stuff like that. So it was really interesting to see young children working with sacred geometry intuitively in just like a natural environment. So that was really cool. But with that said, Jay, if you want to go to the next question.
Not to interrupt you, Brendan, but that brings up another area of very extreme interest in what Charles is doing with his work, from the work that he's been doing at Ennis Court in Ohio, which is something of magnificent paramount interest that I think that we should kind of touch base on briefly here with Charles. And maybe you can talk a little bit about Ennis Court, Charles.
I will. I was married to a really fantastic astrologer. We were married in the mid-'90s. We had 9 years together, and she eventually passed away from radically metastasized breast cancer, unfortunately. But while she was around, she was a fantastic person, and she turned me on to all kinds of things, including now I have intimate knowledge about astrology where I didn't before, things like that. And when she passed, it was very, very hard on me. And then right after she passed, which actually bankrupted me completely, I lost everything I owned, and I was living in an attic, really, incredibly tiny attic. And then my mother started experiencing dementia. And she ended up in this nursing home called Ennis Court. And then it took her a couple of years to pass. Another big trauma. Two of the women that I loved the most, died within a couple of years of one another, and it really, was very hard. I was suffering from what they call delayed stress syndrome, being the caregiver for both these women, the only caregiver. And so I desperately wanted to try to find some way to get myself out of it, and I decided to, along with the staff and the person who runs Ennis Court, Mrs. Gamble, we decided to do this experiment where we would play with these residents who were in various states of mental, decognition, decognition and Alzheimer's and dementia and things like that. And so we decided to create this experiment, and it is still going on. It's been going on now for almost going on 10 years, I think now. Maybe a little less, maybe 8 years. And we do it once a week. We go over there and we play. We just play with little pieces of geometry. And some of the people that are there have never done anything, or they don't do anything. Some of them don't even talk. And yet we can coax them into playing. If I strike a little piece of geometry on a page of watercolor, a little watercolor paper, and give them a brush, some paint, and tell them to play, they go right into and they start fooling around, and they make the most amazing things. I have thousands and thousands of mandalas that these people have made, and they are like children. They're so fresh, and they're so expressive. They're abstract, just like kindergarten children are. All little kids can draw really well, and then they get trained out of it. And but these people are very much like children, and they just have a tremendously good time, and they have focus. They make choices. They actually are thinking, point A to point B kind of a way, and they can hold their concentration now for an hour doing this, and it's amazing because most of the time they're just fogged out. So it's a very experiment, and Jay and I are trying to figure out a way to create a teaching situation which would share this research that we've been doing all these years so that a lot of people could implement these ideas into various possibilities.
Yeah.
This is an area that I, was able to have the pleasure to join Charles there in his court and view some of what's going on there. And I can tell you from a firsthand experience that it is truly amazing to see what actually happens in this environment that Charles is doing when he works with these people suffering from these debilitating diseases. And I think there's a lot of in my personal opinion, misconception about what dementia sufferers and Alzheimer's sufferers are truly capable of comprehending. Mm-hmm. And it is my personal goal that I believe that I think through Charles's work that someday we have the hope that all of this data that has been accumulated over the years by Charles's work there, that we may and somehow be able to contribute that to potential betterment in medical areas. So we're really, really, really excited about that. And I think all of you out there can really look forward to some incredible videos that are going to be in production with Charles and things that we're doing that will definitely be showing up on Charles's YouTube channel, for sure.
Yeah. Very, very cool. And I think you guys are definitely on the leading edge of something here. This whole idea of implementing more right-brained-minded ways of thinking into our institutions, be it both educational and like health and well-being, and even, you know, like again, working in nursing homes or something like that. Like if we can make it more common for sacred geometry to be implemented, even just like as an activity, I think there's something that has sort of, you know, we're just beginning to learn about it firsthand, but you guys are definitely on the forefront of that there. So with that said, I know we're going to be bringing Julian onto the show very soon, but Jay, again, let's talk a little bit about what you guys have planned for the action sports world and how you're going to integrate sacred geometry into that.
Yeah, that's if you don't mind, Charles, I'll go ahead and start out real quick, and then there's a lot Charles has to say about that as well, and that's a really exciting migration that's happening between the relationship of Charles and I, and my background is pretty vast in in music. I got my first recording contract when I was 16 years old, and so music has been a huge part of my life all my life, and I've been involved with action sports all my life. I started surfing when I was 5 years old, and subsequently that led into skateboarding and became a passion in my life. And I opened up my first skateboard brand, Times Skateboards, in 1986 in Las Vegas. So I've been heavily involved with skateboarding, snowboarding, surfing, all of the sport boarding, action sports, all of my life. And when Charles and I met each other, we started talking, sharing the experiences of our life and experiences of where we come from and stuff. When I brought up action sports, it was an instant connection with Charles because he understands the sacred geometry principles in such a deep way that he instantly told me, he said, you know, you realize that these insane things that these guys are doing on skateboards and snowboards, that's all sacred geometry. Mm-hmm. And when he first said that to me, it didn't quite 100% resonate with me. And as I began to study more sacred geometry and Charles's work on his YouTube videos and everything, the light turned on. And it was incredible because you and I had a conversation earlier, not today, but a couple of days ago, where we both had mentioned that we saw that program that Rob Dyrdek had on television, where he was talking about his desire and continued desire to integrate sacred geometry in his action sports world.
Yeah,
so
Robin.
The whole element of the fact that sacred geometry truly is the architecture of the universe is inherent in everything, 100% everything. And so the whole premise of sacred geometry is I'm committed to bringing the principles of sacred geometry now into to the Times Skateboards brand, and our tour that we have right now that is called the Times XL Tour, where we are cross-marketing music, action sports activity in the form of skateboarding, surfing, bodyboarding, snowboarding, and all of that. And Julian, who will be on with us here shortly, is definitely one of the fantastic, incredible artists that will be performing on the tour along the way. Charles will be a part of the tour, doing keynote speaking all the time. The this tour is going to be astronomical. So we're really pleased that our opening date for that tour is coming up here, November 17th, at the incredible Asylum Skate Park in Chicago that is owned by Jeff Conyers, is very, very close friend of mine and business partner as well. And I hope Jeff is tuning in here. I think he is tonight. But we're excited about the fact that we're going to be able to be continuing to introduce sacred geometry principles into action sports, activity for all these kids to begin to find out how incredible the world of sacred geometry really is. Charles, if you want to talk a little bit about that, it'd be great.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm looking forward to getting some sacred geometry on my board. Like, that's been a dream that's been a long time coming, and it's going to happen.
But you're definitely going to be seeing that. You're going to definitely see that on our designs, because before Charles starts talking, we are currently active in a project with a young man named Billy Best. And many of you younger kids out there listening may not know who Billy is, but certainly there is a generation that can remember back when Billy was 16 years old and he contracted cancer. And this young man going through chemotherapy and all of the traditional cancer treatments back then, he had decided at 16 to run away from home because he couldn't take it anymore and it wasn't working. And he literally saved his life in finding alternative sources to beat cancer for his life. And today he is alive. He has a son. He's married. And he has been a skateboarder all his life. And we are bringing out Billy Best Times Skateboards models with Charles's sacred geometry designs that will be the graphics for that model. Same thing is happening in the fingerboard world out there. Anybody who has been a skater one time or another has involved themselves with fingerboards, which is an incredible teaching tool to the evolution of skills in skateboarding. I can remember when I first started, my son was in his bedroom, and he was like only 9 years old, and he was sitting on his bed cutting up all this cardboard stuff and had glue everywhere. He's making a big mess, and he was making a fingerboard back in 1986 out of cardboard, laminating it all together, and he was inseparable with that thing. He took it everywhere he went. And I know for sure that actually helped his process of becoming a better skater. And that everybody's doing it. It's an obsessive type of pastime. So, all these principles, they're all in that. And there is one other thing I do want to bring up as well. And we feel fortunate that we have organizations like ProWood out there, who is the leading manufacturer of really high-quality, high-tech fingerboards behind us. We have so many incredible organizations and companies that are supporting what we're doing with the Times XL Tour in our efforts in bringing this type of knowledge to the world. So I feel really, really great. But just for one more point, in respect to some of the educational aspects out there, I've also committed to being a part of the Ethiopian skate park in Ethiopia. It's going to be the first skate park.
Oh, wow.
I own a construction company, and for 30 years, and we have committed to helping this Ethiopian skate park. It's actually a school skate park for the underprivileged kids there that can't get education and what have you. And I spoke to the director out there and introduced the idea of integrating sacred geometry education in that, which Charles Gilchrist will definitely be at the forefront of. So there's some pretty amazing things that we're doing in the complete action sport world globally.
Yeah. Whatever it takes to get it mainstream, that's what I say. But I think you guys are definitely taking a very interesting route to it, going through the whole action sports side of it. So, yeah, like guys, that's what we're going to see more of. We're going to see some more sacred geometry just sort of infiltrating its way into culture, whether it be on skateboard decks, on longboards, on surfboards, or even on T-shirts. And I know you guys have your own little bit of a T-shirt merchandise. So if anybody's interested in that, I'll just mention it quickly, and then I'll throw it over to Charles. The website for the merchandising, if you would like to get some T-shirts with some sacred geometry graphics and stuff on it, you can go to gilchristcollection.com. So I'll post a link for that in the live chat, and anybody listening can also check that as well. And if you're listening to the YouTube, it'll be in the show notes along with everything else. So, but just to sort of Jay, what I mean, segue it to Charles. I think you had something in mind that you wanted Charles to expand on.
Yeah, I think Charles. I think at this time right now, it's really a good thing to turn it over to Charles right now and kind of let him talk a little bit about what he's trying to achieve in the project with Billy Best, and subsequently completely into the Times skateboards and surfboards and snowboards line. So Charles, go ahead and talk a little bit about this whole area.
Yeah, it's not. It sounds like we're hustling skateboards, and we are, but
for good reason.
More importantly, this whole business, it's about young people, because young people are the ones that are going to be the leaders in the future. And young people are higher. I mean, they're more aware than ever before. And we have this whole group of indigos, children, really extraordinary children who are, some are really lost. And I'm dedicated to trying to touch the younger generation. And I believe that, and when I see these people deeply in this meditative space, I mean, you have to be really centered and really hyper aware in order to spin those boards and keep from falling, and especially on the professional level. I mean, it's just unbelievably beautiful to watch these athletes and work, and all I see is a dance of balance in time and geometry all over the place, arc and balance, especially balance and center. Idea. The holistic idea is a lot in this entire extreme sports world, and these athletes are they are in the next place to trance, and they are dealing with gravitational forces and balance and vertical and horizontal, and it's all geometry. And it will be very, very easy. It's a philosophic bridge for them to perceive what they're actually, how close to the source they actually are when they're doing these things. It's very, very. I'm thrilled to watch it, and I'm a big fan, and I want to turn people onto the spiritual side of this that they hadn't considered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think again, as people become more conscious about what sacred geometry is and start either just researching it more or drawing it literally for themselves, it's definitely going to ripple throughout their entire waking life in terms of like the activities that they're doing, whether it be the action sports or even other artistic methods such as drawing or even music, which is exactly what we'll be talking about as we bring Julian on. And I think, hold on, is my mic coming off a little weird right now? I just want to double check.
Very, very weird, very weird.
Okay. It actually does this. Tell me when it's not done, when it's done doing this. Can you hear me now? As we do this.
No, not really.
Okay, yeah, this is actually kind of, it's weird. It always does this at this time of the show. I'm just gonna. Okay, can you hear me now? Sorry, it shouldn't always be like this. How's that?
That's a little better.
It will fix itself. Let me know if is it better now?
Yeah, you were reverbing.
Yeah.
You were reverbing.
Yeah.
You were.
Yeah, it honestly it does that like once a show, so it shouldn't happen again, which is a really sort of consistent technological issue, but whatever. Okay, so we're good. But what I was just saying, as I was just segueing it up to bring on Julian, as you become more conscious of sacred geometry and as you start working with it, it affects the rest of your life, including your other art if you're involved with art. And Julian is involved with music, so I know he's very knowledgeable of sacred geometry and some of the esoteric knowledge, to say the least, all that information that's out there. So with that said, I think, are we ready to bring on Julian? Are you guys feeling that?
So.
Yeah, I think so. So, Julian, if you're listening, and I believe you are, we're going to bring you onto the air right now, and then we'll go from there. So.
Okay. Can you guys hear me okay?
Hello, Julian. Can you
hear me?
There you are.
Hey. Great to be on the show with y'all. Thank you very much. And I just listened to the dialogue between you, and I actually learned a few things, by the way, that I found kind of exciting. But First of all, I say my name is Julian Forrest, and I am a musician. I favor the electric guitar, but I can play pretty much any string instrument. But what's most important is it's really a blessing to meet up with Gabriel and with Charles Gilchrist, because I've been waiting for the right people to work with for a while. And I have a background with skateboarding and bikes my entire life. And so that was something that at first I was totally not expecting. And when I realized the connection there, it all makes sense now. But my role, so to speak, I think, is to bring the music and the sacred geometrical aspects of the music into the team, if you will, and put it all together. So when you take Charles Gilchrist's magnificent art abilities, the graphic arts, and his deep knowledge, and then you also add music from someone who is also very steeped in the same things, it's a little bit like magic, you know? Mm-hmm. So that's what I was getting to myself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, let's get into Julian a little bit more about some of the work that you and Charles are doing. But just before we get there, like, what is sacred geometry to you? Like, how would you explain it? What do you see it as? Its significance?
There's a lot of different ways that I could approach that, and the most important thing that I would like to say about it is that there's an archetypal level to things. It transcends math or geometry or music theory or sound or anything. It's something that's integral to why everything exists or why we can't experience anything. It's the underlying archetypal reality that's the most important. Some people approach it through painting or music or mathematics. What I like to do more than anything is to feel the correspondence of those archetypes and freely create with them. And what I found, and what I relate to everyone more than anything, is I've become more and more aware of what happens when you take someone aside and show them in real simple ways what the exact relationship between musical pitch and harmonics and harmonies is to geometry and form. It's the connection between frequency and form that really sends a light bulb off in people's minds. And the reason why is because if you show them there's a connection and you really make it clear and simple that it's real, but they weren't taught it in school. Yeah. I've done this with world-class physicists, doctors. Take an artist aside and show them harmonic proportion, and they go to the moon. You know, it's something that shows them that, hey, there's not so much randomness and chaos and fragmentation in this universe as you were told to believe.
Right.
It can be shown really simply. Now, I'll share with you guys all to be really, really personal with you. It took me tons and tons of study and work to get to the point where I could show it simply, to know what the right answers were and be really confident about how it all interconnected. But it's not really that complicated, you know. And the most important thing is that there's a series of harmonics on a string, going back to Pythagoras as a prime example. And these harmonics are built into the string, and there's a way that they unfold. You can take one single string and show someone the harmonics and show how it relates to geometry, and they may be changed forever.
And I think if people want to get a good visual representation of how sound ties in with sacred geometry, and a lot of you have probably already seen this, but run a Google or just a YouTube search on cymatics. So cymatics, cymatics, and just that is like the study and the visual representation of how sound affects matter and creates like the geometry out of it. So it's and Julian, like again, just sort of how does sacred geometry incorporate itself into your work as a musician?
You know, there's a lot of different ways that I could answer that, and it's something where it's kind of like trying to describe the universe. You know, it's there's a lot of different ways I could talk about the universe, but to try and narrow it down to something kind of specific. Once again, I'm just going to go put it out there. I'll be very personal with you guys. In some very deep states of meditation, I've experienced some things that I found out later, kind of perennial, and other people have had these experiences. But when you have the experience, you know it's real, and it shows you that, everything really is actually made of light, and there's archetypes, there's geometry underlying forms, and what's more and above and beyond that is all of the forms, once you actually figure out how it works and connects, are related to harmony. They're related to frequency.
Sure.
So that connection between the very reality we live in, just to kind of, put it into a summary really, really quick. If you take the spacings of the planets, there's something called Bode's law. You can look it up on Google. Real simple. It shows you that the intervals between the planets are, in fact, harmonic. Mm-hmm. It's really easy. Okay? Then you go to the atomic table of elements, and you look at it and you say, wow, it's been shown to me as this block. It's something I could put on a blackboard or a page of a book, and it's like a rectangle, more or less. But the reality is it was discovered by the fact that it was a spiral. If you actually just map it out, it's a harmonic spiral that goes in octaves. And the guy that discovered it back in the 1860s, around 1864, Mendeleev, he started finding out there's octaves in the atomic weights. And said, well, what if the rest of them are musical intervals too? And they were. But you don't really see that in your typical science book. So if there's harmony in the atomic table of elements, the spacings of the plants is harmonic, and you start looking at how plants grow. Mm-hmm. You look at all these beautiful plants and all these beautiful flowers, learn some sacred geometry, and you start saying, wait a minute, there's archetypal forms manifesting in fractal ways in everything. Yeah. It's all harmonic. Yeah. And so when I make music,
as above,
that's
so
what
below.
I've been. As above, so below.
Yeah.
So the planets, the stars, frequencies that we can't hear, whatever it is, they're still in a register that you can relate harmonically to something else. And so that's how it really relates to my musical approach. I
really want to hear your music. Are you guys going to play some music, I hope?
We do have that. We do have the opportunity here to play some music by Julian. So
Julian's fantastic.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So now, Julian, this is an idea that we discussed earlier. As some of you who have been listening to Paradigm Shift Radio in the past, you know that we do have a regular meditation within each episode that we do. So now I actually do have like a sample. So let's just play the sample first, which is just it's about like 50 seconds, and then we'll just get into a little bit more discussion, and then we'll go into our meditation, say no later than 12:40, and then from there we'll continue the conversation. Does that work for you guys?
Perfect.
So,
yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
Cool.
Great.
Cool. So, all right, guys. So we're going to play a sample of Julian's music, and this is from a piece of his called Jules Verne Vision. So Jules Verne is also the one of the fathers of science fiction. He is the author of Journey to the Center of the Earth and quite a few other books that I'm sure some of you have heard of. So this is we'll get Julian to talk about this a little bit more, but first let's just I'm going to mute the mics for you guys, and then I'll bring you back on as the clip wraps up. So okay, so
thanks, Brendan.
All right, so hold on, guys, 1 second. I'm going to mute you and then play the sample. Here we go. Okay, and sample is playing. Very cool stuff. All right, so I'm just going to bring you guys back onto the air.
That's incredible stuff, Julian.
There we go.
Thank you, Jay.
So we're very proud to have you working with us, man. And for those of you out there who live in the Chicago area, I just want to make a quick, plug real quick that Julian will definitely be playing some of his music at the Times XL Tour at the Asylum Skate Park November 17th. So we encourage anybody out there to come out there and see Julian perform all this amazing music live.
Mm-hmm.
Very excited to be at that show. It's such an amazing opportunity to actually play at a skate park. I can't tell you how much that means to me, honestly. I love the idea.
Cool. So Julian, just tell us a little bit more, maybe about that piece in particular, or just.
Sure, absolutely. There's something going on with the composition where, in really simple terms, what I did with that and some other things, I actually transcended what the guitar is supposed to be able to do. If you listen to it really carefully, you'll hear all these harmonies overlapping each other, and it creates, instead of just the idea of, oh, there's a string over here, and there's a string over here playing, there's another keyboard maybe over here, and there's something else over here, and they're all playing together, and that can make a harmony. What I did instead is I actually combined the harmonies so they're overlapping each other, and they make actually something more like a field of harmonies. And if you start listening to it, you probably have to hear it a few times to really get what I'm saying, but there's a version of it on YouTube called Jules Verne Visions. If you just go to Julian Force, it comes up pretty easy. And start listening to it. There's a lot of things going on harmonically and that aren't really immediately apparent, but it's the underlying sacred geometry of sound that I'm utilizing to make that all work.
Very, very cool. And I was going to say, Jay or Charles, if you have something to add in this.
I want to talk about the ideas that the ideas of fusion and that we're going to implement in the 3 Days of Light Festival. Because Julian is going to be playing under my presentation and in between in little breaks, and he's going to be interpreting my message, my own what he feels in his creative jazz heart. Is going to be correspondent with what I'm actually trying to get across. And
yes.
Go ahead, Julian.
Oh, yes. Go on, Charles. Please continue. I just wanted to chime in and concur with you.
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to create an ambiance of consciousness on the purely right brain level, which is the form and the music, because you don't have to really understand anything about music to feel it. And when I create my mandalas, many times I see musical. I feel and hear and see musical aspects in geometry, and Julian does the exact opposite. He's making music and he sees geometry, and it's obvious. It's an obvious marriage, a potential marriage for two artists to work together, two performing artists to work together in different ways, and form a synergy that will be bigger than both of us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing that firsthand. And just to sort of remind our listeners, again, if you would like that chance to see Charles and Julian do their live presentation at the 3 Days of Light Festival, which is coming up just before, this will be the last reminder before the actual draw and before we get into our meditation, again, to take part in your chance to win the all-access passes to 3 Days of Light, which is happening November 2nd to 4th in Asheville, North Carolina. Go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/Paradigm Shift Radio, and message the page. Just tell us a little bit about what you think of the show, and your name will be entered into the draw, and we'll be revealing who the winner is for the first All Access Pass by the end of the show, and there will be more chances to win within the coming weeks. So, again, guys, that's what you're doing is really very, very cool. Sacred geometry is something very near and dear to my heart, and seriously, since it started clicking for me, since the dots started connecting, the world has not quite looked the same. Everything, it's that idea of kind of going back to what Charles's mother was saying originally, of being able to see and find the truth and beauty within potentially everything. And sacred geometry is always there. It's that consistent archetype throughout our reality. So go outside, go walk through nature, and go take a look at everything around you, because it's all sacred geometry and it's all interconnected. And that's some pretty cool stuff. So, guys, how are you feeling? Is there any points that you would like to bring up before we get ready to move into our group meditation?
If you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead, Charles.
I think that one of the things beautiful things about sacred geometry to keep in mind is there's this there's this concept. It's called expanding your radius of comprehension. You know what I'm trying to say? It's a geometric idea that is associated with the gathering of information, new information. It's like getting a new channel on your television set, you know? A whole, you know, with something completely different on it. All of a sudden that changes your whole world. And when your radius of expansion expands, it's like a sphere that keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. When you study sacred geometry, that's what it does, and it creates an architecture whereby you can find numerous correspondences between the information that you already have in your brain, which is kind of like floating around in some kind of an unorganized way. Suddenly, you start to see all these correspondences in all your entire life. As sacred geometry, as the architecture, then all these things start connecting to it, and connecting to it, and connecting to it, and it leads straight to the holistic reality, that everything is completely connected and it's all one, and we are an inseparable part of that one, and it makes us all infinitely more intimate in our connections with the entire universe and everybody around us. It's a huge advantage. A huge advantage. Plus, there's one more really seriously important point that I want to make before I forget it, and that is this relationship between the left and the right brain, the allegorical right brains. What happens is when you really start to, neither side works by itself very well. It works okay, but not well. I mean, I know everybody knows somebody who is so completely ungrounded and so completely into a fantasy world of the imagination that they're like almost dysfunctional even on a minor level in the world. They can't make it out. They can't go anywhere. They can't get anything done, and they're kind of sad. And then if you see another person who is completely left-brained, who's only completely bought into the rational thought and cannot even give 1 inch of energy to his own or intuitive abilities, they're also equally lost. It's only when we start to get a cooperation going between our rational capacities and our intuitive capacities, that's when we start to really have the advantage. Because and that's one of the things that sacred geometry does. It integrates the left and the right brain. I believe that's a really critical area for our own expansion of consciousness and our own healing, is to get into a cooperative venture between left and right instead of having it a war. In my world, that relationship is a dance. It's a beautiful dance. It's not a war. And I owe that to my work in sacred geometry, that integration between my intuitive capabilities and my rational capabilities. You got to have them both working together in cooperation.
Absolutely. So some good healthy reminders there. As we look more into sacred geometry and become more aware of it, we're going to become more conscious people on multiple levels, as well as better professional athletes and extreme musicians and all this and that. So whatever you're doing, take note of sacred geometry, because it is an underlying pattern that is always going to be there throughout all different religions, throughout all different experiences. It is fundamental. It is part of the archetype. And it's just that reminder that we're all connected. So that said, I think it's about time that we get ready to move into our meditation. Now, what I would like to ask you guys, any thing that you would like to put into this meditation in terms of intention, or just like an introduction before we move into it. So opening it up to J. Charles or Julian.
Are we going to do breathing?
Well, it's going to be listening to Julian's music. And hold on, I'm just going to Jay, I think I'm getting the echo on your end. So, Jay, I just got your mic muted just to let you know I was getting a little bit of an echo. But Julian, this piece that we're going to be listening to, it's called Timepiece, and it's a piece as in Peace.
Yeah.
So that's a very interesting title in itself. So I think it would be
sure.
appropriate to set something. If you can set something up for us in terms of the meditation.
Yeah, I would love to do that. It's a very, very intricate symphonic piece, and there's only one instrument playing, but it sounds like there's a rack of keyboards where there's a chamber orchestra. So it's very, very intricate and very fluid. And so it came to me as a great play on words. I thought of it being intricate like a timepiece, like a watch that you would hold. But then I also realized it's an excellent wordplay for the word peace.
Mm-hmm.
And so I call it timepiece, spelled like peacefulness. And so this particular composition, the thing that I would say about it more importantly than anything during a meditation is if you're open to it, this piece of music can take you right to the celestial planes. No kidding.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's a good introduction, if any. So, guys, I'm just gonna let's just get ready to move into our meditation here together, as we normally do on Paradigm Shift Radio. And even for those of you who are listening to this show after it's initially aired, feel free to take part in this meditation as well, because again, sort of relating back to this idea of interconnectedness and non-locality and time isn't linear. There's an energy that's associated with this event that we're recording right now that is still going to be very much real when you listen to the show again in the future. So, all right, everyone, let's just sort of get comfortable, sit how we need to, and Julian and Charles, I'm going to mute your guys' mic, and then I'm just going to set up with a couple breathing, and then we'll play the audio, and I'll bring you back on after that. And
okay,
at
Brendan.
that point, we'll be within the last 10 minutes of the show at that point. So we'll just go over a few closing notes, and then with about 5 minutes left, I'm going to have to let you guys go as we get ready to wrap up the show. So just give you a little bit of a heads up on that. So cool, guys. Okay, so just muting your mics, Charles and Julian, and again, everybody, just get comfortable as you need to. Sit whatever's comfortable for you, so you can have your hands in your lap, fingers can be interconnected, or you can just have your hands gently upon your thighs or on your knees. So together now, let's just take a deep breath as we close our eyes and connect. And actually, sorry, not to disrupt, but I was going to say, because this was an original idea, if you would like to do something a little bit interesting, feel free to look at an image of sacred geometry while you are doing this, if you would like to do it in an open-eyed mandala sort of technique. So perhaps something by Charles would be suggested, or just close your eyes, whatever's comfortable for you. So again, just take a deep breath, 3 seconds in through the nose, and then 3-second exhale. And just find a rhythm that works for you. And come into that place of peace and calmness. And allow yourself to go where you need to go as you connect with this very unique and very potent musical piece that we have tonight on the show. Thanks to our friend Julian Forrest. just take another minute to really appreciate where you are right now and understand that you are exactly where you need to be in order to get to where you are going. And everything that you need is within arm's reach. So take another deep mindful breath, and when you are ready, open your eyes and reconnect to the room around you. Alright guys, so there we go. That was a little something different for you compared to the meditations that we've had in the past, but very powerful, very unique. And if you would like to hear more of Julian's work, go to his MySpace, which is myspace.com/ForrestJulian. So it's just Julian Forrest backwards. So myspace.com/ForrestJulian. And check out some of the other tracks that he has there. There's one called Angelic Fade, which is very, very similar to the timepiece and very, very much worth listening to. All right, so Julian, Charles, and Jay, I'm going to bring you guys back onto the air now. And one at a time. And all right, all three of you are. Oh, Jay, I think.
Hello, everybody.
Echo coming through.
Can you hear me?
Jay, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah. There is one thing I want to point out for the 3 days of light gathering with respect to how the activities are going to happen with Charles and Julian and everything. On Friday night will be the keynote speaking that Charles was talking about with respect to Julian's participation musically with his keynote speaking. And on Saturday, there is a 6-hour sacred geometry workshop that Charles conducts, which is absolutely astounding and amazing. So for any of you out there that will actually be going to that event, you can actually go to charlesgilchrist.com and actually register for the workshops. Once again, the Sacred Geometry Workshop is on Saturday. And then on Sunday, there is a really special treat that Charles is going to conduct a mandala workshop. And that is where people can actually have hands-on with the templates that he's created and actually learn how to begin to paint mandalas and actually participate in what he refers to as open-eyed meditation, which is amazing, and Charles will get a chance here in 1 second to actually talk about that. But I just wanted to kind of let everybody know what the agenda of activities is for our participation out there. And also on that Saturday, I come from a very strong background in music myself. Julian and I will actually be jamming together, so that's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be very lighthearted and just a lot of fun.
Very cool, very cool.
Yeah, I look forward to that, by the way.
Me too, Julian. That's going to be great.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it as well. So, all right, guys. Now, sorry, Jay, I'm hearing an echo on your end, so I'm just going to have to mute your mic as I'm talking.
Okay.
Personal. But I just wanted to say, guys, with the last couple minutes that we have, any sort of final notes that you would like to bring up? And Jay, I'm going to just bring you back on here for a second. But again, let's just. Whoa, okay, that's quite accurate. But let's just use these last couple of minutes just for any final notes that you would like to share in terms of the work you're doing.
I'd like to say one thing to give Charles Gilchrist a little bit of highlight here. One of the things that really stood out to me that I'd like to kind of turn people on to and say to look for on the site is he does the Vitruvian Man in a way that I've never seen anyone do and revealed layers that are in there. And this is one of the ways that Charles and I started first interacting. And it's really part of that whole series of things that I had mentioned, that the planets themselves are harmonic, the music of the spheres, if you will. Also that the matter that we have as the atomic table of elements as our perception is harmonic. Plants growing is harmonic. Well, Charles' Vitruvian Man is harmonic. And so all the ancient teachings from the greatest, from Hermes Trismegistus, from Pythagoras, Plato, the Indian sages, the ancient Egyptians, they were all telling us that man and his form is the microcosm of the macrocosm. And so this potent emblem that Charles Gilchrist is bringing to us again shows us once again that everything is interrelated, just like he was saying earlier. Everything is connected. There's harmony and geometry involved in everything.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Charles, last couple of minutes there for you to wrap things up with.
Well, I just want to say that the very best way that you can possibly experience sacred geometry is to put your hands on it.
Yeah.
And we have made we know how important this is, and so you can go to my website and get free templates from my website. It's in the gallery section of my Sacred Geometry website.
Mm-hmm.
Just go to talk.com and you'll find it. And you can download all these templates and print them out to your heart's content and play with them and add to them and, put compasses on them even if you want. And find all kinds of interesting patterns. You could take one of those templates and you could do 100 different mandalas from that same template and they will all be different. It's possible.
Very cool.
And that is the whole, that is where the real power comes from, when you actually get involved visually. That's when it starts to really work. So I do that. Don't have to be an artist. You don't have to be an artist. Just if you can color, that's all you need to do.
Absolutely. Very cool. And Jay, I'm just going to bring you on just with about 30 seconds, just any final points that you would like to share.
Yeah,
okay.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for the whole program and inviting us to be on it, Brendan. This is a wonderful radio program that you got going on, and I encourage everybody out there to continue to follow your efforts and stuff. And it's going to be a great event at the 3DL, and I just want to say thank you to everybody who tuned in tonight. And for a personal note with myself, with Charles, the teachings that I have learned from my association with Charles has been an immense growth in my life, and I want to personally thank you too, Charles, myself.
Very much, Jay. I love you.
All right, gratitude all around. So again, guys, thank you so much for being on the show, and I definitely look forward to being able to meet with all of you in person in the very near future at 3DL, and we will keep in touch, and all the best to you, and thank you again. So.
Okay, thanks very much, Brandon. Take care.
Namaste, everyone. Jay,
thank
Jay,
you.
Charles.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Appreciate everything.
All right, take care, guys. All right.
All right, bye-bye.
Very cool. So there you go, guys. That was our special guest for the evening. And with that said, because I did not forget about her, we still have Jen, who's been co-hosting it from the live chat. So thanks a lot, Jen, for doing that. I know this episode was a little bit different in terms of having multiple people on. But Jen, I'm going to bring you on, and as I bring you on right now, hey, Jen, how's it going?
I'm fabulous. How are you doing?
Enjoying the show?
I am having such a good time. My heart chakra and my palms of my hands and my soles of my feet are just so electric right now.
Cool.
I can't stop giggling like a fool. It's fantastic.
All right. Okay, so here's before the show wraps up, because we only got a couple minutes and I don't want to miss this, we have the winner for the first all-access pass to the 3DL. So we ready for this? Yeah, let's get drum roll ready, guys. So ready? Someone's life is about to change. And the winner is Catherine Hitu. So last name Hetu. So Catherine, we're going to be messaging you. So congratulations, because we will be seeing you at 3DL, presuming you'll be able to get there, which I imagine you will be able to. So there you go. That's how it works here at Paradigm Shift Radio. We changed lives, and that was one more that was changed. So congratulations, Catherine, and thank you everybody for listening in. And if you're listening to this show now, be sure to check out the YouTube version of it, which will be up within the next couple of days. It might not be up right away tomorrow, because tomorrow I have to go do some stuff. Actually, I have to go support animal rights. I have to go try and save some dolphins and promote compassion and stuff like that. So I'll be out first thing in the morning. But Jen, I'm sorry, I don't want to just leave you with a little bit of time to talk, but we only have about 60 seconds left in the show. So any final notes or messages that you want to leave with all our lovely friends out there?
Yes, absolutely. We're going to, of course, close this down, but we're going to leave live chat up after in case anyone wants to discuss. If you have links, please refrain from posting them. Maybe you can post them on the page or just send them to Paradigm Shift's inbox. But if you have questions, stick around. And also, I just look forward to getting to know people more. And also, I hope that you guys can show up at 3DL, because I would love to see your gorgeous faces and meet those wonderful smiles of yours. So that's it.
So again, guys, if you want to become part of the chance to win access to 3DL, the All Access Passes, message the Facebook page on Paradigm Shift, facebook.com/Paradigm Shift Radio. Go to ParadigmShiftCentral.com. Check out all our videos. Check out the community there. All the information that you need is there, and be sure to stay in the loop because we got a lot more content on the horizon, and big things are happening. It's happening, guys. So stay tuned always, because the future is just around the corner. So thank you again, everyone, for listening, and cue the outro music. Namaste, everyone. Take care.
Namaste.